Hello again. So, this problem asks us that if a semicircle is rolled up to form a cone as shown, if the radius of the semicircle is 8, what is the volume of the cone? So, if the radius of the semicircle is 8, then AB prime is 8, or AB is 8, and therefore we can do the same thing with our cone. We know that the slant height must also be 8, since that slant height is AB. Okay, if I were to try to find the circumference of the semicircle, that would be, well, normal circumference is 2 pi r, so 2 times pi times 8. However, since it's a semicircle, we would divide by 2, since it's half of a regular circumference. And therefore, the circumference would be pi times 8, or 8 pi. And if we were to find the circumference of the cone, well, that would, since the base of the cone is just a regular circle, it would just be 2 pi r. However, what we can notice is that the circle that acts as the base of the cone goes from B, circles all the way around, and arrives at B prime. And we notice that is the same thing as the circumference of the semicircle that we started with. Hence, the two circumferences are equivalent, and therefore 8 pi equals 2 pi r, where r is the radius of the cone. And if we divide both sides by 2 pi, we get that r is equal to 4. Okay, so now I have a good understanding of what's going on. I know that the radius is 4 and the slant height is 8, but I need to know what the actual height is, because the formula for volume is 1/3 pi r squared times height. So I need to find out what this height is. And knowing that the radius is 4, use the Pythagorean theorem, and we will get that h squared plus 4 squared, which is 16, equals 8 squared, which is 64. And therefore, h squared equals, well, 64 minus 10 is 54, minus 4 is 50, minus 2 is 48. So h is equal to the square root of 48, which can then be broken down into 4 times 12, and 12 broken down into 4 and 3. And since we're taking the square root of all those, the square root of 4 is 2, which means we have 2 times 2, which is 4, times the square root of 3. So now that I know my height and the radius, we can solve for volume. So I have 1/3 pi times r squared, which is 4, times 4 times the square root of 3. 4 squared is 16. If we multiply 16 by 4, then we will have 40, because 4 times 10, plus 24, because 4 times 6, and 40 and 24 is 64. So we have 1/3 pi times 64 times the square root of 3, and if we were to just clean that up a little bit, 64 times 1/3 is just irreducible, so you have 64 square root of 3 over 3 pi. And that would be what our volume is equal to.